Yo, what is good, YouTube? Welcome back to another Movie Monday. I know there hasn't been one in a while, but just because, again, I haven't seen a movie that I haven't watched in a while. If you've checked out my ranking for my Final Destination movies, go check it out after this. But before we get into this movie review, if you have any movies you like me to what's called review or watch just in general, comment them down below. But today, we'll be reviewing the new movie Final Destination, the 6th installment of the franchise. And a little background for this movie. I am a personal fan of the Final Destination franchise. You know, 1 is solid, 2 is, I think, the best. 3 is up there right next to 2. 4 we don't talk about. 5 I think was a nice bounce back, and with the new installment of the 6th, I will say I do have hopes for the franchise going forward. But a little background to it, or a little bit of plot synopsis of the background basically is during the 1960s, this woman named Iris basically had a premonition, as every character has, about a floating restaurant, I guess is basically to put it, like a restaurant on a sky tower going terribly wrong, and then the same formality thing happens, the premonition happens, and then twist of it, she survives for about, I say, around 60 years and has a family. So then now that family is through the cycle of death, which means that the family and everyone that's basically from the oldest to the youngest is in death cycle, meaning that it goes from, like, you know, uncle or like grandpa, uncle, dad, brother, youngest brother, you know, basically it's like the time is basically like the death cycle from oldest to youngest. Other than that, the premise is still kind of the same with some, you know, a few twists here and there, and then it follows the Irish family basically overall, like through the whole movie. But that's basically the plot synopsis. But a few things to note: this movie is around an hour and 40 minutes long, is R-rated, and is classified as a horror movie. But let's be honest, I feel like the last few Final Destinations haven't been really a horror movie. But that's basically the rest of it. And there's no end credits or mid credits that I know of. The theater I was in, I kind of left early, I can't lie. So there is post credits. That is my apologies for not watching till the end. But that's basically all the background to the movie and to the plot itself. Now let's get into the goods, the bads, and the neutrals. Getting into the goods, there actually is a pretty good amount of goods. Starting off with, I think, the concept of the family, I think, is a unique idea and a unique twist to the kind of formulaic, you know, group of people go through the traumatic event or premonition, and then they all like have to go basically get together and try to survive it together. So I think a family just doing this, I think, is a nice change of pace and also a nice formulaic like thing to go about, because, like, you know, it just, I think the situations that they put through, I think, is more connecting and bonding, if that makes sense, because they're family members. And speaking of situations they put in, I think that this goes back to the more iconic, you know, needle drop type of kills where like everything's setting up one after another, because in like the later like destinations like 4 and 5, it kind of feels like just death as a ghost and just like pushing things just to happen. But in this, it kind of feels like, all right, these things are realistic, you know, and just like these things can happen like in situations where like it feels like more tense, like a backyard barbecue or something like that, where like something bad could happen, you know. So like I think you do think that like the needle drops of the situations are very good. And I also think that the cast of characters are a lot better than most movies, and that's not really saying a lot, because Final Destination are notorious for just having nothing burger of characters. And don't get me wrong, these are still nothing burger of characters, but at least they have a little bit more depth because they are family members. So at least there's like at least something there for them, like, you know, like knowing each other. But there's really no character arc or no character development. It's just they're just fodder for the movie. I can't lie. There's like, I would like to see a movie, a Final Destination, where like they actually build up the characters so when they die we actually care about them. And another good thing about this, I think, is just the creativity that they have for the kills. I think how creative some of these kills are, I think, are very unique and also very good. Like, I feel like at a certain point they just kind of start getting stale and just like running out of ideas. But no, this movie, I think, is very inventive with the kills that it has, and very situationary. And I do think that the kills are honestly really good, and some of the callbacks too are really good. And I think the last good I want to get into, I think, is Tony Todd. This, I think, is his last performance on screen of a movie, and the little speech he gives like towards like what's it called, like just part of the movie, I do think is very nice. Like, I do think that, like, what's called like what's it called, his speech is like kind of a wink nudge to the camera. But I do appreciate him being in this movie. He will be missed. You know, comment down below Tony Todd. But that is basically all the goods. Now let's get into the bads. Getting into the bads, honestly, there is a good amount, but I don't think they're as huge of a, you know, huge deal as the goods. Starting off with just the CGI, I feel like recently, well, like, or like not recently, but like with the more newer Final Destinations, I feel like they kind of went away from practical and went more towards CGI, and this is just a CGI fest. So just anything that can be CGI, they will make a CGI instead of trying, you know, putting an effort with practicals. Even like the slightest kills, they didn't even try to make practical. They just did all CGI, and you can definitely notice the CGI. And also, this movie has like the little problem, I don't know why, but since the 4th movie, they still think that it's the 3D era. Like, some of these shots that they have in the movie are like still with 3D, and it's like, why still try? 3D era is gone. It is no more. And then also too, I think some of the characters are too dumb in this movie. Like for example, how do you not know what an MRI is? I understand if you don't know how it functions, but how don't you know what an MRI is? Like one of the situations in the hospital, they don't know what an MRI is. I don't understand how that's the case in 2025. You don't know what an MRI is. That's kind of insane. And I think the worst atrocious, I think, bad of them all is Iris's air quotes safe house. You can't even call it a safe house. You know death is after you. So you have spikes outside of your house, a gate full of spikes, a sharp little window in the bother that says northwest, east, and south, a chicken on top. That in front of you. A fire extinguisher outside of your house. There's so many things that make her safe house dangerous, and it's considered a safe house. She stayed alive for decades. I'm surprised, to be honest. But that was basically all the bads. Now let's get into the neutrals. Okay, getting to the neutrals, I haven't done this category in a long time, but the premise of the neutrals is that it's a concept of the movie that isn't really bad or good. It doesn't make or break the movie. It's just a kind of put in a weird spot where maybe for one person it's bad, but for another person it's good. Starting off with a premonition, I think the premonition concept is a good idea. That part I think is a great unique twist to it. But I think the premonition itself, where it takes place in the Sky restaurant, I think is a weird place because who realistically is going to like 90,000 feet, not 90,000, but like 90 feet in the sky to eat like on a needle tower, And also too, I think the concept it's just really weird and very specific to happen. Because like in the first movie, a plane is realistic. Second one, a highway is realistic because it's just a highway. I understand you need to be behind a log truck, but still that's still realistic. Third one, a roller coaster, very realistic. A lot of people go on that. Fourth one, NASCAR, okay, you're kind of getting wishy-washy. Fifth one, a bridge is very understandable and realistic. But this one is just like, I don't know, like it's not a bad premonition, but it's just like, it's not really relatable to a lot of people or like to me like, in general. So I think that's just a neutral for me. And I think the very last neutral is also just the tone of this movie. The older, like 1, 2, kind of 3, definitely not 4 or 5, is the tone of the kills for these movies. Because like in the first two, they were like taking it more serious, and like third one is like when they started transitioning to the more goofy, itchy and scratchy type of kills. And this movie definitely has that type of vibe with the itchy and scratchy, like Tom and Jerry, like rated R type of version of kills. And if you're into that, then you're into that. But I'm personally not. I like the more serious tone, where it's like everything is dreadful, where like there's an actual sense of like danger, where just like kind of not made up for like laughs and like things. Because I'm not even kidding. For one of these kills, was so comical that the theater I was in started laughing. I don't know if that's what assisting with the movie, or the people watching the movie, but the people were laughing. That's all I gotta say. But those are all the neutrals. Now let's get into the rating. Now getting into the rating, honestly dude, this was a tough one to rate for me because I do think it's a good movie, but at the same time I don't think it's the worst or the best at anything. Like in like the franchise of Final Destination, I do think it's up there, but as a movie itself I think it's okay. And there's a lot of good things about it, but then there's also a lot of wishy-washy things that I do think were changed about it, like with the tone, the premonition, and some of the CGI because I wish were more practical. But overall I do think it is a decent film, so for that I'll be giving it a 6 out of 10. It is better than Med again. 6 out of 10 is still a decent okay film. And I do personally think that if you're watching this in theaters, or if you want to watch this like on a streaming service one day, I do think this is worth to watch. Remember, this is a rated R film, so just be aware who you're watching this with. If you're wanting to watch with like a younger audience, be aware of that. But I do personally think that this is worth the watch. And for me personally, I do think this is probably the 4th best one in the franchise, with I think 2, 1, 3, this one, 5, and 4. But that is basically my rating. Comment down below your thoughts on the movie without spoiling it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, please like, subscribe, and comment for more. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.